So, Words and Wisdom is the name and the title of the series. And our passage for today is Proverbs chapter 15, verse 28. The righteous ponders how to answer. Straight out of the verse. But today I'm actually reading from the NRSV. I'm not using the NIV, but for the verse today, I'm reading the NRSV for you. The mind of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil. We've been looking at the book of Proverbs for a couple of months now, or a few months. And the book of Proverbs introduces us to two groups of people, the wise and the foolish. And what is the criterion by which a person is deemed wise or foolish? Speech, how they use their words. Today's verse also defines the righteous and the wicked. What is the criterion by which this is determined, whether or not a person is righteous or wicked? As you would have guessed, once again, it's by their speech, the words that they speak. How you speak determines whether or not you're righteous or wicked. Jesus says the same thing. Matthew chapter 15, verse 10 to 11 says, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them." Same thing Jesus is saying here. Well, we live in a day and age where eating clean has become a big thing, right? I gotta eat clean, right? There was a time when eating something was good enough. But now we live in a day and age where it's like, we gotta eat clean, and I do my best too. But just because we eat something clean, meaning something clean goes into our body, does not mean that what comes out of us is clean. That's what Jesus is saying there. And what determines whether or not we are righteous or wicked is what comes out of us. The words that come out of us determines whether or not we are righteous or wicked. So based on this criterion, I want to ask you, pose this question for all of us and ask this question. Am I a righteous person or a wicked person? Proverbs also talks about the impact of the wicked and their words. So Proverbs 11 and 11, it says, "Through the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it is destroyed." A city is not destroyed by an army or even weapons, it says. The city is destroyed by the mouth of the wicked. It is by the mouth of the wicked that a city is destroyed. Now, I ask you a second question. All of us probably may have overlooked this, but I want to ask you to ask or consider this question. Have my words had any destructive results at all, anywhere? I'll put it this way. Has any city been destroyed because of our own words that we have uttered? Whatever that city is, that city may be a person. I continue to see even grown-ups who are caught in the pain and the trauma of the words that they heard growing up from their parents. Words of negativity, words of not blessing but curse. And I see how those words are continuing to destroy and be destructive for so many people. Even though they're all grown up now, they're still caught in the pain of the words that they had heard from their own parents, siblings, or friend. Has any city, maybe that city is a relationship, been destroyed because of our words? Ask that question today. Because it is not by an army or weapons the city is destroyed. Here it says it's by the words of a wicked. Words of the wicked that destroy a city. But Proverbs also teaches us where the sin of words begins. Proverbs 17:4, it says, "A wicked person listens to deceitful lips. A liar pays attention to a destructive tongue." What this verse is saying is that our human hearts, we are attracted to deceitful and destructive words. Really? We're actually attracted to destructive words? Yes, we are. We may not think we are, but we are attracted to these words. Let me give you an example. Just think about how hot the tabloids featuring scandals are, and how many people keep clicking that kind of news, and how quickly it spreads. And we're all talking about it, right? See, we have this tendency, our sinfulness in us, that attracts us to these deceitful words and destructive words, even though we don't think we do. And what also happens is that when we actually listen to those words, we think we don't like it, and we feel like, I don't like what I'm hearing, I don't want to hear it, and yet we want to hear it. And we know it's destructive, and yet in some sort of crooked way, it kind of also feels delightful, right? It's like someone's being talked about. And you know this is not good, it's unhealthy and destructive. And yet there's part of us, that side of us where it's like, it's kind of delightful to be able to talk about someone behind their back. And we experience this conflict in us. You know, around this time of the year, I really have a struggle, and that struggle has to do with chocolates. It's like around this time of the year, all of a sudden, all these chocolates starts popping up. You know, it's like on my desk, at church, at home. Where did these chocolates come from? But there's nothing wrong with chocolates. But problem for me is that whenever I eat chocolates and too much of it, my skin breaks out. Yes, I am almost 50 and I still get acne when I eat chocolates. So I know this chocolate is destructive for me. And yet, I can't help it. It's kind of like that, right? So, this is what I started doing. I started just eating one. And then I'm just trying to measure up to how many can I eat until I start breaking out, right? And this is what we do. We know it's destructive, at least for my skin, right? My beautiful skin, right? It affects, and I start getting acne, but I can't help it. And it's kind of like that, right? And I'm eating it, I'm like, this shall build immunity. My body will be strong against chocolate. Next thing you know, poof, 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 right? It's like that. These words that are destructive, we know it's destructive, and yet in some sort of weird, wicked way, it's also delightful. And this verse tells us it all begins by listening to them. So we got to be careful with what we listen to, how we listen to, and the words that we listen to. This is why listening becomes key. We have to learn to listen well. We have to learn to avoid certain things. But if we cannot avoid it, because we live in a world where we cannot avoid everything that we want to avoid, we have to learn to digest it well if we consume it. Even if we didn't choose to, sometimes we can't help it but to consume it. We got to learn to digest it well. Going back to the food analogy again, we cannot eat clean all the time. But if our organs are healthy, some of it gets flushed out because our body is healthy and organs are healthy. But even then, if we don't eat clean, some of the things will remain in our body and it'll cause some damage. So we learn to start doing detox. Same thing spiritually, right? We can't help it but consume it, or without our choice, it gets consumed and it gets absorbed into us because we can't avoid it. Then we got to learn how to detox well spiritually. Through worship, through prayer, going to the Word of God. We got to learn to just flush it out as best as we can. And that's something we have to learn how to do. Train ourselves to do. So with all that, I come back to the first question again. Am I a righteous person or a wicked person? If the standard by which this is determined is the words that we have spoken. Am I a righteous person or am I a wicked person? I'll give you my honest answer. My honest answer is this. I am a righteous person, or I am a person who is deemed righteous through the blood of Jesus Christ. By faith, through grace, right, that He has given to me through Jesus Christ. So I'm a person who is deemed righteous, but I must admit that there are times where I have been wicked because of the words that I have uttered. That's the honest answer. The gospel of Jesus Christ is good news about Jesus Christ. It tells us that it is good news because salvation comes through Jesus Christ. And it is good news that's offered to everyone in this world. There isn't a single person in this world to whom the gospel is not given. But the thing is, not everyone receives this gospel and salvation. Why? Because in order to receive this good news, there's one door of truth through which all must pass through. All who want to receive this gift of salvation and the gospel of Jesus Christ, you have to walk through this door of truth, and that door is sin. What I mean by that is walking through this door of truth where we come to full acknowledgement of our own sin and sinful nature, and fully accepting and acknowledging and aching over the fact that I am a sinner. Unless a person walks through that door, cannot get to the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And this is why many reject Jesus and the gospel, right? Because I don't want to hear that I am a sinner. You Christians keep telling us that we are sinners, but I don't want to hear it. That's not good news. But when you actually read Tim Keller and his book on the gospel, what he actually says is that the fact that we human beings are sinners is actually good news. Why is this good news? Because God didn't beat around the bush. He didn't hide the truth, but He really did tell us what exactly the problem is. I'll put it to you this way. You have a condition, or you're going through some illness or sickness or something virus, some viral that's happening, and you go to a doctor, and do you want your doctor to say, yeah, no, but I think everything is okay. No, I don't think you are sick. That's okay. It'll be fine. You don't want a doctor like that. As harsh, as heartbreaking it might sound, we want this doctor to know what my problem is and tell me what the problem is, so that even if it hurts, that He will lead me to the solution. So this is why, even though the world may not think that way, Tim Keller says the fact that the gospel says we're sinners is actually good news. Good news starts from there, not just when we receive the gift of salvation through grace. That's not good news just on its own. It's good news because we know what the problem is and we now found the solution. That's why it's good news. Now, coming back to the issue of our words, why do I say this? Because for us to experience the transformation of our own words and the blessing that comes as a result of it, which is my goal and hope for all of us. This series on words and wisdom is so that you and I, we would be changed and transformed in our own words, so that you and I will experience the abundant blessing that comes when our words actually change. That's the goal. But for us to experience that, we all must go through this door of truth first. And that truth is this: we are all sinners who have sinned with our words. I must admit the difficulty that I experienced in preparing this sermon. And I don't know, if there are those, fire and brimstone preachers that have a really easy time just reprimanding and just preaching like that. But to be honest, I have difficulty. It's hard for me to preach that kind of sermon. And the reason is because before I'm a preacher, I'm a pastor, right? So I'm supposed to be, at least try to become a shepherd. And as a shepherd, it's really hard for me to just come down on someone and say, hey, you're sinful, wicked people. It's hard for me to do that. So even in this sermon, I'm like, do I put it in the series? Do I not put it in the series? If I put it in the series, what order should it go? Number 1, number 2, number 3? But as I struggled, it had to go in. Because this is something that's so fundamental. This is not just a surface issue or let's not say bad things. Let's not just use bad words. It's not that level. This is something deeper, and we got to go deeper and actually get to the root and get to this point of acknowledging and accepting fully the fact that we are sinful, and it is that sinfulness that comes out of our mouth. Until we get to that level, it's going to be difficult for us to experience this transformation. That's why. When we go to Isaiah 6, last passage, Isaiah is called to be a prophet of God there. He's in the temple, and then God's glory comes, and his robe fills the temple, those of you who know this story. And the angels come, and they're singing, holy, holy, holy is the Lord, because God's amazing presence is so big and awesome. And as God is filling his glory, his glory is filled in his temple, Isaiah 6:5, when Isaiah experiences this glory and holy presence of God, this is what he cries out. Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. I don't know if you've ever asked this question, but okay, I get the fact that when God's glory and holy presence comes, we feel the utter sense of sinfulness that we have in us. I get that. But my question always has been, why does he confess that he is a man of unclean lips? Why not unclean hands? Why not unclean feet? Why not unclean mind? I always wondered, and I don't know if there's a right answer. But let me put it to you this way and ask you this question in a different way. When Isaiah says, I'm a man of unclean lips, do you think he would have been a type of person that would have sinned a lot through his mouth and with his mouth? If I think about it, I don't think so. Why? Because he was most likely a priest. So he worked in the temple. He would have been considered a holy man. And not that he never sinned, but I think he would have been at least tried. He would have tried to not sin with his lips and with his mouth. Just look at me. I'm a pastor. And I try. At least to you guys, right? And hopefully that my inside matches outside too. But I try because of my calling and position. I don't just start, saying things just kind of unholy. I don't do that. And it's not because I'm any more holy, but it's also my position, calling, right? So I think Isaiah would have done same. He would have done something similar where he would not have been that bad of a sinner when it comes to his speech and the words that he spoke. But why does he say that I'm a man of unclean lips? Well, because he's come to a deep understanding and sense of his own sinfulness. You see, when a person has a shallow understanding of sin, he or she just talks about what everyone talks about. Oh yeah, that's sin. Murder, stealing, cheating, that's sin, right? When a person when a person has a shallow understanding of sin, what they talk about in terms of what sin is very impersonal, and it's just general. But when a person comes to a deep understanding of what sin is truly and fully, and those who do, they talk about things that many do not see as being sinful. Why? Because it's personal. And because it's personal, it becomes very specific. And I think this is what's happening with Isaiah. He may not have sinned that much through what he has said in his life. But when he experienced God's holy presence, this sense of sinfulness became personal and very specific. What I'm saying is that's what we need. And as soon as he confessed that, this is what God does. Verse 6, then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongues from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, see, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for. And this is what I mean. This is what has to take place. This is not just about let's try hard to make sure that we hold ourselves back from saying the things and not saying certain things. It's not this kind of level of thing. What we're talking about is something deep that's in us, deep sinfulness that is all of us, and that manifests itself, that sinfulness, and it is expressed through the words that we speak, even though we don't want it to be expressed through the words that we speak. So the problem is not just okay, let's control ourselves, let's control our tongue. That's not the fundamental issue. The deeper issue is we all got to come to realization that we are utterly helpless. And what we need is God's touch, His holy touch, His touch of grace. This coal touched the lips of Isaiah, but he didn't burn, but he became clean. Let's go back to the verse from the top again. The first verse that we read, Proverbs, our passage for today. Can you show us? It says, the mouth of the wicked pours out evil. But it says the mind of the righteous ponders how to answer. And I want to draw our takeaway from this in light of this deeper sinfulness that is connected to the words that come out of us. Here's the takeaway for today. Let us ponder deeply about the sinfulness of our words. Let us ponder deeply about this. Not this shallow level of, I said something bad. God is not really thinking about that. He's really calling us to go deeper and just come to that place of utter helplessness like Isaiah, right? That we experience and we know the holy presence of God and His holiness, and we are just caught in His holiness, and all we can say is, God, there's nothing good in me. There's this sinfulness in me, and it comes out of me through my mouth. What I need is your holy touch. And even if that touch is burning touch, let me just endure through it, because I know it's your touch of love, touch of grace. This coal that you touch my lips with, my heart with, is not one that will burn me to that, but it will bring me back to life, and it will cleanse me from my impurities. That's what fire does. Purifies things, right? That's what we need. That's what I need, Lord. So I want us to go to God today with that sense of utter desperation, but also a sense of hope that you are the one that can help me. Help me. And if you can touch my lips today to cleanse me from my impurities, you could actually touch the things that I have already uttered in the past. I believe that His grace can reach back and bring about different results. Yes, these things were said, and I heard it. These things were said by my parents, and all these years I've been entrapped and I've been in a pit because of what they've been telling me and what they have told me. They don't even think that was bad. They're like, what? I don't even remember, right? But it's been with me all these years, and yet if the holy presence of God and His fire touches even the worst in our past, He can cleanse it too. He can purify it, and He can bring about different results. So, My takeaway once again is this: let's be desperate as we ponder deeply. It says righteous ponders, right? The words that he or she will say. It's not just about, saying, not saying, this level of thing. It's deeper. We ponder on this. We think deeply into this, and we truly come to the gospel, which is good news that says it's not my skill, but it's by the Spirit of God that He transforms us. So as the praise team comes back up, our response song, part of the response song is, I will run to you, to the word of truth. That's what we run to. What were the words that you have uttered that came out of your sinfulness? What were the words that were uttered to you that came out of someone's sinfulness? Let's just come to that place of acknowledging once again our desperation. We're hopeless without you, God. So come through your Spirit, through the fire of your Holy Spirit, to touch us and cleanse us of our impurities that came through the words that were spoken out of us and from others to us. Would you stand with me? Let's run to Him, to His word of truth, and ask God to bring Isaiah 6 moment today, where His holy fire touches us and cleanses us of our wounds, our pain, and our sinfulness, and our impurities. Let's sing it together.